up, everybody? It's Mace here, and you're listening to or watching the Students of Sales podcast. As always, I'm here with my two co-hosts, Tyler Witt and Phil Mann. Gentlemen, how you guys doing today?
Doing
Doing
well.
great.
Nice to see
Awesome,
both of you.
awesome. All right. Well, you guys already know what we're talking about today, but for the audience listening today, we're going to talk about how to build a relationship with your prospect when you're on the phones with them having conversations. And so each one of us are going to give you kind of our take on a tip, trick, a strategy to successfully build a relationship. We'll share some of our own personal experiences as to things that we've done to help us build rapport and relationships on the phones. And hopefully, you guys can walk away from this session today with some great takeaways to apply, put into action, and see some positive results from on your calls. So I'm going to go ahead and kick it off. And when I thought about this question about how to build rapport, a couple things came to mind. One of the things that I generally do is I like to identify some commonalities pre-call. So as part of my pre-call prep, and we've talked about pre-call prep in a previous episode here, one of the things I like to do is based on some research, find ways to connect with the prospect or the prospects that I'm going to have this phone call or this demo or this meeting with. And I think another important piece to that is not only finding some things, whether it's location. I know that that may be kind of cliche, but location is powerful. I happen to be in Arizona, and one thing that's unique about Arizona is around this time, pretty much any time of the year, it is the complete opposite, right, of just about everywhere else in the States or in the world. So it becomes an easy conversation. Not to mention, I can't even count how many times we've had a conversation about where we are, and they have either been to Arizona and want to come back, or they're on their way here for some reason or another. So it makes it easy to have some conversation around that. Another one that I use are, and this one might be my favorite. It's current events. So, and again, those current events could be anything from like the Game of Thrones finale a few years back. I was crushing on the rapport building, the relationship building when that happened. For you guys are into sports, right? NBA Finals, Super Bowls,
World Cup
you know,
right now.
World Cup. Like right now, World Cup is a great way to build some rapport and conversation with just about anybody. And so, just recently this week, right, with everything that's going on with crypto, I happen to be talking to a company in the crypto space, and so it actually made for great conversation
Get that agreement
in that
signed early.
regard.
Get that agreement signed early.
I know,
That's
right?
all I'm
Before
saying.
you got, all right. And then another one I think of, obviously a lot of us are doing research on LinkedIn as well. And I can think of, another call that I had. It just so happened that the person I was meeting with, they happen to be a former NFL player. I happen to know a few NFL players that are in the league around that time. The conversation came up, and lo and behold, we become best friends just talking about football and who we're familiar with in the game. And so that's kind of my go-to is that's I need to have a hook of some sort, right? I need to find
Yeah.
something to kind of anchor the conversation with, and doing a bit of pre-call really helps in that. But I think the most important thing is to keep those conversations going on that second and that third, those follow-up calls as well, just to again keep that connection there, to make the conversation more than about just trying to close the deal and such. So in a quick nutshell, those are kind of some of the things that I use on a regular to get conversation started, and then again to keep them going. But I'm curious to hear from you, Tyler, what some of your key points are for building relationship and keeping it going.
Yeah, I think obviously it's important to say, look, the relationships throughout the entire process, this, that, and the other. But I think specifically, what we want to make sure we're talking about is what is it? The old BRBR, right? Build relationship,
Yeah,
break
break
resistance,
resistance.
right?
Yeah.
Build rapport, break resistance, whatever. But it is vital to being in a call. We've all jumped on a call and you get shut down, or you just kind of the nerves are getting to you. So I think those are great points, Mace. Like have those. For me, it was always just you have to genuinely be interested in the person you're going to speak with. Like, I don't really care. To me is one of the things of, I heard this early on in my career, but enter every conversation like you have something to learn. I cannot tell you how impactful that's going to be throughout your entire sales process. mean, that alone, I mean, to this day, if I'm listening to a sales rep's call, I can usually tell through the rapport agenda setting, right? That first kind of 2-3 minutes of the call, I could tell you if that's a sales professional or not. And it's based on what is their mindset coming into this call. Is it like really buttoned up, stiff, like, hello, Mace, my name is Tyler, and I am going to walk you through this demonstration today. How about that Game of Thrones finale? What did you think? Like, it's awful, right? Or you guys know my favorite, oh, you have weather, Mace. That's amazing. We got weather over here. We got so much in common. Like, it's just not genuine. And so I think coming on to the call, like, we get into the weeds on the prep, this, that, and the other. But like, to me, I just genuinely like, I get a chance to learn from this person, right? Either, wow, I'm talking to, maybe Phil over here. Well, it's easy out there. Maybe Mace over here runs a very successful sales team, and I can learn what are the tips, tricks, what are this and that. Or Phil, who's just not running the best sales team right now. Just kidding.
Shots fired.
But then I can learn maybe what not to do. But either way, like that's my number one thing. So it is go into every conversation being genuine, being yourself, but like entering like you have something to learn. That's gonna take care of the humility. It's gonna take care of the interest. It's gonna take care of the listening skills. Like it'll take care of actually most of your core sales skills. If you just think, wow, what a pleasure. I get to speak to Mace today. Like, Mace, I'm excited to talk to you. Like, and then whatever from there. And I think it starts becoming pretty natural. And you don't have to be as stiff and rigid. And it was funny because you were thinking about the last point I'll make is you're talking about the current events. And I hear people all the time like, the World Cup's going on. So it's topical, right? And maybe they had something about, whatever team on their LinkedIn. So like, oh, yeah, you watching the World Cup? Yeah, I am. And like this person may have spent 20 years playing soccer and they follow every game and you really don't know much about it. Like you're killing your relationship right there. Just don't talk about it. You don't have to. Just because you saw that doesn't mean. And again, if you can't be genuinely interested enough to like, hey, Phil, what do you got going on this weekend? Phil says something, you're like, oh, that's interesting. Like, and then be able to ask questions. You got bigger fish to fry in sales, let me tell you.
Well, it's funny. You just reminded me of a time years ago when we were running like a report. Like we decided to focus on rapport building for coaching for the office. And remember, we would run those one-on-one calls where we'd be a customer and they would have to build a rapport. I can't remember the name of the guy, but he literally would make all of the rapport and the relationship building about him and not about the customer. Right. If I did remember his name, I wouldn't say it anyway, but it just reminded me of that, to your point about being genuine,
and that's
it does need to be about them.
Well, and it's funny because that's why I say, like, I can listen to a report and I've got a pretty good sense of where that salesperson's at in their career. Because same thing, like, oh, Mace, where are you from? Right. And you say something, it's like, oh, man, I live in Arizona. And I start talking about myself and this and that.
Yeah.
Guarantee you, fast forward 3 minutes and they tell you like, oh, here's my qualifying question. You answer it. I start pitching because it's always going to be about me through the rest of that call. It tells you immediately in rapport who's the call about. And if it's not about the prospect, then it's about you. And sales, like you got to focus on that. Otherwise, sales is going to be a very, very tough profession for you.
Absolutely. 100%. It's, I think, a great point for anyone who's watching or listening right now. It's like, what are the real benefits to having a strong relationship? So just pause for a second and talk about that. So Tyler talked about, build rapport, build relationship, break resistance, but we'll get to that. But, ultimately, if you start and thinking about relationship at the start of the call, it's going to open the prospect up. It's going to ease them into the call. They're going to feel more relaxed and probably willing to share more information with you, which is ultimately money in your pocket. And the classic old expression is when they're talking, it's money in your pocket, but when you're talking, it's money in their pocket. So the more you get them talking, the more you learn about them, the more you learn about their business, their industry, their pain points, all of that stuff. So ultimately, building a great relationship at the start of the call is going to open up the conversation, is going to open up your prospect. And the second,
it's going to even out your playing field too. Just to that, like it'll even that playing field.
Present yourself as equals. Yeah.
A lot of people come into the call and they're like already just saying like, oh, I'm submissive to you, right? And you want to enter the call of like, hey, Phil, and just boom, call them like you talk to anybody. Yeah. So it's a great point.
Yeah. And the second thing is people buy from people who they like. It's really that simple. And Tyler, not to get you back or anything, but if Tyler
That's
has
not
a
what they
great product,
said on. That's not what they said on LinkedIn the other day, Phil. They told me that's not true anymore. That's just not
it's
true.
so true. It's so true. It will never,
Of
let me
course, it's
tell you,
true.
it will never be not true. But
Yes.
not to get you back for the sales team comment, but if Tyler had a product and Mace had a product and they're pretty similar in terms of, you know, functionality and price, but I have a better connection with Mace, I'm sorry, Tyler, you know, you're going hungry. Like, you know,
That hurts more. That's below the belt. That's below the belt. Because you
So
know I
that's the
pride
second-
myself on my charm.
But that's the second thing. People buy from people who they like. Now, I'll tell you where that becomes really, really crucial is if you're in a competitive market space and you're against 4 or 5 other businesses in some kind of competitive bid or RFP or whatever it might be, that relationship could be really the deciding factor. But my favorite time to have an amazing relationship with a prospect is probably the third and biggest reason to build a relationship is when you're handling objections, when you're in negotiation, when you're talking about price. Prior to this call, prior to us starting this recording, we were talking about some people that we've worked with over the years, and there's this one exceptional individual, and he like got an objection that was like, "Oh, I'm just going to take this to my team," and the person laughed. The salesperson laughed, and they were like, "What are you talking about? I mean, what are they going to say? They're going to say, wow, sounds great. You know, getting a huge return on investment from XYZ. Yeah, why wouldn't you do it?" Like, so, and the person on the call was like, "Yeah, you're right. I don't need to take it to them." Like, you know, just that ability to handle objections. Sometimes, you know, it really, really benefits you later in the call. So whilst you might not get the reward in the first 5 minutes from that small talk or stuff like that, it will help you later down the line. So I just wanted to talk about the benefits, you know, to building a relationship. But the big thing for me to add on this is I want everybody to think about an iceberg, right? You got like this much above the line, right? But there's so much below the line that you just can't see. So I always talk about building a meaningful connection. Any old Joe Soap can build somewhat of a rapport or meaningless connection. And what I'm doing is I'm talking about, "Oh, hey Tyler, how you doing? How's the weather in Arizona?" "Oh, great, I have weather too." It's like, no, that's not that's not a connection. That's the ultimate small talk. That's elevator talk. "I never want to see you again. We'll probably never see each other again." That's you don't need those.
Good
So
enough on the 4th floor, huh?
yeah,
All right. See you then.
okay, cool.
See ya.
Have a good one. Like, you know,
Yeah.
that's just it's like, quite honestly, it's something a sales guy would do. The people that are listening to this and watching this right now, we want to be sales professionals. There's a really big difference between a sales guy and a sales professional, and sales professionals know how to build meaningful relationships. And I want to go in and kind of give you a couple of examples. But, you know, for me, you got to get underneath the iceberg. Honestly, I used to train this years and years ago. 10 years ago, I was training, you know, the big things to talk about were weather, you know, sports, current events, weekend, you know, like location. Location is a really big
I
one.
still
You know.
remember all 5. I still do.
Yeah. So, like, you know, those, like, don't get me wrong, those are still good things to talk about. But if you want to get to that next level, I'm going to give you some real big pro tips right now. So I want to talk about connect questions. What is a connect question? A connect question does exactly what it says on the tin. It builds a meaningful connection between you and the prospect. Now, I'm actually going to give you 3 connect questions that I ask right now on the phones, and my guys are asking these questions every single day. And what they're doing is they're not surface level weekend questions, you know, or "Oh, you're in Arizona" questions. I'm talking about like how to actually get underneath the surface, how to get the prospect talking, how to really kind of, you know, make that customer think, "Oh, wow, that's a great question, Tyler," stuff like that. So I want to give you 3. So the first one is all around, you know, making your prep obvious, you know. And for example, if I had a call with Mace, I would say, "Mace, wow, I could see on your LinkedIn page you went to college in New York, but you're out there in Arizona. How did that happen? Tell me the story." And then all of a sudden, boom, prospect knows you've done your research. You're showing your curiosity, and prospect does what they get to do what they love to do, which is talk about themselves and their journey. So just easy, you know, just find something interesting about them, ask them, "How did that happen?" Really, really cool. And the person, you know, instantly feels that connection with you. Now, they might actually not, maybe that's the wrong way to say, they might not feel the connection, but they feel like the opportunity has arisen that they can build that connection with you.
Yeah.
So that's a really, really big one there. So that's the first one. The second one is like, we speak to businesses, not everybody sells exclusively to the same industry. So for example, if I'm selling to pharma every day of the week, maybe this one isn't for you, but use one of the other ones. But if I'm selling to a wide variation of businesses, I might say, Mace, wow, reputation management online, that's such a unique industry to get into. How did you get into that? And again, they're talking about themselves, they're talking about their journey, and it's just a really, really friendly way just to open up the conversation immediately and just make it feel like you're interested in them and their journey. So that's another good one. And then the final one for me is just something about their business, believe it or not. Like people, if they don't want to talk, if they're not talking about themselves, the next best option for them is their business. I want to talk about my business. I don't care about your product yet. Like, let me know you're a human first. Let me know that, you're interesting and I want to talk to you. So you could say something like, Tyler, I've seen, your business has grown, 3 or 4 times over the last, 3 or 4 times in size over the last 5 years. How has that happened? What are you guys doing over there? And how has that impacted your role? So so those are 3 good examples of connect questions that they're not like, hey, it's Friday, what are you up to the weekend? They're going to forget that you asked that question by Monday. They probably might forget that you asked that question by the end of the call.
And the reality is like, so one of the things I always think about is this too, is I like your points about the connect questions, right? The one thing I say is I want to be, I'm curious your thoughts on this, because I'm a little careful about my connect questions. So I was thinking in my head, so those are 3 really good questions. One of the ones, I recently had a situation where my reps were really upset because we were talking to a lot of new starters, right? Silly enough, sales and marketing has a huge turnover. So
get out of here,
especially right now. And so when you're targeting sales and marketing, you tend to speak to people where the turnover was high. So they're, you're not going to talk to people in the role for 10 years. It's 3 months, 6 months. It's now. Right. So one of the questions, connector questions, make it brief, was, hey, Phil, just saw you started over there 3 months ago. Like, what kind of made you join the organization? What's your big mission, right? And that's to me,
question. That's a great one.
Yeah. So to me, though, here was one of the things, and this is why I bring this up, is because I would use that as my jump off into discovery. Because one of the dangers, and maybe you're getting into discovery quicker, like before the agenda. Like, I want to do a quick, hey, Phil, what are you up to this weekend? Listen for my windows. Like, oh, it's amazing, right? Oh, whose wedding is it? Oh, that's awesome. Well, cool. Set my agenda and then say, great, well, let's jump in. And that's where I use my kind of connect question, because that connect question will get me typically, right? Like, oh, you're at this industry. What got you in that industry? Oh, I got this. And usually if I'm listening, I'm going to hear my opening into my discovery, qualifying, needs analysis, pain, whatever you know, as long as it's not banned, you're doing everything, you're supposed to. So the question is that getting you into discovery sooner than you want to be into discovery, or is that not a worry for you?
But that's totally fine. Again, you got different types of personality. If I'm a blue or if I'm like a real straight shooter, I want to get into the discovery sooner. Yeah. I don't want this bullshit like soft, rapport. So like sometimes, getting in sooner is a great thing. Now, if you open up the call and they seem really bubbly, energetic, you've got a yellow, you've got someone that you can kind of like just enjoy and maybe relax and ease into the discovery. But getting in sooner is not always a bad thing. Tyler, I know you wanted to make a joke there.
I literally just bought this book called I'm Surrounded by Idiots. Have you guys heard of this?
No.
And it's basically on those, the red, yellow, blue, green, right?
Disc profiling, ones. Yeah, it's huge.
Yeah,
it's
the
huge.
disc profiling, yeah. So I'm kind of, I don't know. I was curious if you guys have read it, just because I read it, and it's all on those and how to. Yeah.
If you're in sales, you definitely need to brush up on your knowledge on that. But just, I wanted to mention something you kind of talked about earlier about speaking to new people after they recently joined an organization. So sometimes salespeople are, they see who they're about to speak with, and they see they've been in the role 2 months. It's like, they're not a decision maker.
Those are some of my favorite prospects, by the way. Those are some of my favorite.
But that's what I mean. Don't.
They got something to prove, and their boss is still naive enough to probably let them prove it. Like, you know what I mean? Like, they haven't learned that they don't know what they're doing yet, or suppose people have to do. Sure, they're the 1 or 2 that do, but they haven't learned yet. Like, they're about to make a ton of terrible decisions, and then they're going to get turned over in a year.
But also, their their boss hasn't said no to them yet on
Yeah,
on
that's what I'm
stuff. Yeah.
saying. Yeah,
But my
yeah,
favorite thing is like those people. They're they're probably replacing someone unless it's a brand new role. They're probably replacing someone, and they have to do things differently. They have to bring in changes, new
yeah.
ideas, new
That's why
technologies,
they're
new
hired.
strategies. Absolutely. So sometimes, don't look at a new person and go, oh, wow, this is going to be really difficult. They're not senior in the business, stuff like that. The job title is a more of a giveaway than their actual tenure in the business. So,
Here's another point too that, right? You think about the fact that they're new, they don't have any relationships yet. They're brand
yeah,
new.
Yeah,
They haven't
yeah, they want
established
to
any
make friends.
relationships
Yeah,
yet.
yeah,
They need to, right? They need
yeah.
some relationships, I think. And so that's a really good point. Something that stuck out to me, Phil, as you were talking about the connecting questions, and we didn't intentionally mean for it to do this, but it really actually did connect both my point and Tyler's point, at least in my eyes, because
Right.
yeah,
think about in order to have a connecting question, you have to do that prep. You got to do some
Research. Yeah.
prep. You got to do
mhm,
some research beforehand to have those connecting questions. And one thing I noticed, even as you were just kind of like, role playing the questions, your energy, your enthusiasm, the passion
Right.
in your tone of voice, like
Right.
you genuinely asked that question and you genuinely wanted to know the answer to it. You were actually curious about the answer. And I think that goes back to what Tyler was talking about, being genuine, being sincere, really being yourself when you're asking these and not being a robot and asking just to ask. And so I think you put all three of our points together, right? The pre-call prep, the being genuine, sincere, um, feel your energy, your passion, the enthusiasm, as well as the connecting questions. That's going to make for an amazing rapport building, relationship building experience with everybody that you do talk to.
I'm literally
Absolutely.
laughing there because I'm thinking about I do that before a call. I get my prep ready and like, right, I'm going to do this. Like Mace, you went to this school, and I'm thinking Mace, we're talking. I have those notes down. I'm good to go. And the moment we jump on the call, I see a plant behind you, and I'm like, plant.
Yeah,
So you
yeah,
got a
no.
plant there. What is that
Yeah.
plant?
Yeah.
Like it's
People
just like,
Yeah,
like
people
it's
are
yeah,
letting you in their homes
yeah,
nowadays. They get to see,
yeah.
like, I can't tell you how many people have asked me about this picture
yeah,
behind me, and I like, you guys have great backgrounds and stuff like that. So
yeah.
yeah, absolutely. Like, you might have prepped 3 or 4
I had a
great
shit
connect
background. I felt
questions.
bad because you guys, so I moved rooms. Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, you could have 3 or 4 great questions, prepared for the call, but sometimes just something you see or
yeah.
feel is the best thing to
But
do.
Yeah,
but
that's
that's
it.
that's a real relationship. Like you let it come to you and you don't force it. Like, and I
Yeah,
think that's if I kind of, thinking about everything we're saying here is, you're pro. So you do your prep, right? But you're a pro, and so you got to let things come and go. Like,
Yeah,
if I wanted to, again, like I'm, maybe I'm selling X product and I do whatever prep, I'm on the call and they give me a different answer. Like I got to move on. Like, and I have to be able to do that in the moment. And I can't be set to my agenda. Yeah, my agenda in terms of process. Here's what we're going to look at. But like, I have to be able to, move with the speed of the call. And again, that's where my point of the being genuine comes in. Of like, I see that, something in the background. I'm thinking like, oh, the real plan, like blah blah blah. Now it's this and that, and then like, I could talk. And if you're again based on your profile, I'm hearing your responses. If your responses are short, like, nah, it's just something my wife put in here, like, shit, let's move on, right?
right.
Like, but if you start talking about it, it's like, all right, I can get a little bit. Let's loosen, let's get the air, like, or let's have a quick chuckle or something like that. Let's see if I can
yeah.
make you laugh. Comedians call it your tight 10, I believe it is. Like, you need to
Oh
have
yeah,
like,
tight 10
Yeah,
minutes. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
yeah,
So
But that's just it though, right? I think it's the preparation, like all these years and all these hours of prep that we've put in makes it easy to pivot to something that we catch spontaneously, right? And we can pivot to that because to Phil's point, we recognize, this is a much better route
yeah.
to go down than the prep that did. But without that prep, if you didn't have that muscle
Yeah.
developed to do the prep, you wouldn't even recognize that thing to
And,
spontaneously have a
and
conversation about.
and we all have, all of us on this call, we all have well over 10,000 hours on the phone with individuals, so we're probably a little bit more comfortable.
yeah,
So I think, I do think for earlier people, like, that's part of it is like be, relax, right? It's not that big of a deal. And when that genuineness comes in, like it just, calm down on the call a little bit. Because I do notice that a lot. And you got this prep like, oh, Phil, I hear that accent. Where are you from? Ireland? Is that right? And yeah, like, and Phil doesn't want to. You clearly tell he doesn't want. He's been asked about that so many times. He doesn't want to talk about it, but I force it because I'm too wrapped up in my own agenda.
Just one final point from me. I want to talk about a really horrible situation in sales, and it's called ghosting. It's called ghosting. You get ghosted all the time, right? And I want it, like, I don't know how else to say it.
Well, Phil, how is that related to relationships?
I don't want to say it as direct as it. There's no other way to say it. I'm sorry. If you're getting ghosted, it is 100% your fault. And I'm not saying I've never been ghosted. It happens from time to time, but it happens me significantly less than it happens other people, because we're good at building. It happens to sales professionals less because they're really good at building those meaningful relationships. We've been invited to weddings, Christmas parties, like they want to do in-person training, they want to do beers and stuff like that, because we've built that connection over 5 to 7 calls over, like, when you think about it, if someone, unless it's a highly transactional sales, you probably spent 4 or 5 hours with this person. You should know about them. You should know about their kids or where, what their goals are. So, like, I just really, really encourage you to build meaningful relationships. And I promise you, you will get ghosted a lot less than you're getting ghosted at the moment.
That, and my final point on that would be, when you have a strong relationship, the benefit of having it is, especially when you get, kind of up, in that high level of sales, because at a certain point, you're going to have to get consensus, get other people in the business involved. And that is going to take relationship. And the quick little anecdote I give is this, right? If I'm dating somebody, right? So I think back, not now, clearly, if my wife's watching, I'm not dating anybody. I'm saying 15 years ago, right? Before married and all that kind of stuff. If I was dating somebody and, like, we're hanging out and she drops that, hey, I asked her, do you want to go have dinner this weekend? She's like, oh, I wish I could. My parents are in town, right? And I respond with, like, oh, your parents are in town. That's cool. Like, can't wait to meet them. Like, I'm excited. Like, oh, yeah, blah, blah, blah. And she says, well, yeah, like, here's the thing. Let me, they're just in town for a short period of time. We're doing a family kind of thing, but I promise next time, right? What did I just learn, Mace? What did I just learn in that interaction? Are we in a serious relationship?
Yeah, it doesn't sound like it. Doesn't sound like it at all.
We're a couple steps further back. Same thing with your prospect. Your prospect's like, let me take it to that person. Let me get their feedback and I'll bring it back to you. Like, they just said, like, whoa, buddy, like, we're not there yet. We're not exclusive. I promise you, I'm checking out other solutions right now. So you and I, we're not exclusive. And that's a big part of relationship.
For sure.
Yeah. It's a good signal as to where you are. Right.
Yeah.
As well, for sure. So, man, this has been a great episode. These are our kind of points, our tips, tricks, strategies on how to become better at building relationship and building rapport. And so we hope that everybody that tuned in today was able to take something away from this. We encourage you guys to apply this, to put this to action immediately, measure your results. We'd love to hear your feedback of the success you're having using these tips. So until the next time, this is Mace, Tyler Witt, Phil Mann, Students of Sales. Please like, comment, subscribe. We'll see you guys in the next episode. See ya.
See you, everybody. Thank you.